The tapes are rolling. Okay, how are you feeling today, Nikita?
I'm really absent-minded today. Work seems to be unpredictable. Sometimes it's really hard to focus on the task at hand when other things are distracting you.
What things? Internal things or external?
No, we're definitely not going to turn this into a psychotherapy session.
I was gonna dig into our list, but you keep making me happy with topics that you already have for me. That's good.
I had a topic for you. And I think it's especially interesting given the type of person that you are, given how much you travel and how many different cultures you've experienced yourself. The topic, I think, is that, not a lot of people understand how dramatic and difficult the experience of living in a different country is. I was just thinking the other day how the first few years when I came to the US, people would ask me, like, do you think in English already? Do you feel comfortable? Do you feel like at home? Do you feel totally acclimated? And I remember how literally the first few months living in the US was very confusing, and everything looks different, smells different, the food is different, the culture is different, the people are different, everything is confusing and different. And now that I do think in English sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, my kind of relationship to it changed. So I don't really know where I'm going, where I want to go with this. But the point I'm trying to make is I think those who wish to immigrate, right? Those who wish to live in another country, a lot of times they have absolutely no idea how difficult and dramatic this type of transition is. And that until you die, you never actually fully recover from it.
They severely underestimate the gravity of this decision. And since we who've done it keep our best face on and keep the appearances that everything is good, the choices that were made were good, we are fully responsible for our destiny, and it was a good idea to move to a different country. They only see that cover of the book. Yeah, they don't see the depth. I mean, unless people want to ask questions and dig in, many people don't really. I mean, and plus, we don't really want to share our traumas with most people. I mean, why would you want to put that burden on them, right? But yeah, that's true. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, and I don't wish it upon anyone. And if somebody says, "Oh, cool, you moved to the States," so I'll do that too. I think I'm gonna, follow your footprints. I'm like, just think about it. If you wanna really know, like if you really want to know how heavy it was at times, especially in the beginning, you might want to change your mind. I mean, sure, I don't want to dissuade anybody. If it's your dream to move to a different country, sure, go for it. But just be aware.
Let's make it personal. What are some ways that are unexpected, I guess, that you personally miss your country of origin?
Well, that sense of belonging, that I'm that country's person, that I can go up to anybody and connect just based on the language, the slang, the nuances of cultural, commonly shared legacy or whatever it may be, pop culture or education. What else? It's access to childhood friends and family members. It's less important over the years, but it's important for a while. For some people, it never stops being important. Being disconnected from the people that left a huge imprint on you as a child or as a teenager. Those years are a lot more sensitive, yeah? So the blueprint that you make together with other people for yourself, for the rest of your life, is especially pronounced then. It's the foundation. So when you move, depending on the age, but it doesn't matter really, like after you're a fully formed adult, I'd say after like 19, 20, every new country can offer a blueprint that you can use. You can create your own new life that is based on that country's culture, but it will be a rapid adaptation. Like you will never be one of them. And maybe it's a good thing in one place and not so good in another place. So I guess I miss this easy access to connecting, to connection that already exists, and to the possibility of connecting to other people that are made of the same matter as me.
There's multiple threads that I want to pull, and one of them is how easy it is as you travel. I imagine you have similar experience, but how easy it is here in the States or elsewhere to connect with somebody who's from a similar culture. How quickly the connection forms and how much understanding there is, even though you know nothing about this person other than this person shares your cultural background. It is mind blowing sometimes. I can immediately feel like I have, it's easier for me to trust someone just simply based on just being from the same culture. And the other thing I'm bringing up is also interesting. It's what is, if you immigrate when you're 30 and if you immigrate when you're 16, these are two completely different experiences. I'd say anybody who's sort of below, just before they go to college, and they move to a different country, by the time they're 25, they will sound American, they will behave American, they pretty much be American for all intents and purposes, and they will probably speak some Russian, but they will be quite American. Like the amount of American in them will be larger. And the way I think about it is like the onions, I guess, the layers of a person that are growing over and over again. And then the deeper layers were formed in a different culture and different language. And then you move countries and you start growing new layers on top of it. But the deeper layers of me still speak Russian. Like if I have a dream, like a dream that is connected to the deeper parts of me, they speak Russian. If I do psychotherapy, I chose a Russian-speaking therapist because I wanted to work with the parts of me that were formed in a different language. So that is interesting to me.
At this stage, you're revealing that your native language is Russian and that your background is Russian, and so is mine. We haven't talked about this yet on record. So, and the reason why we're communicating in English right now is so we can reach a wider audience, right? Because I think this conversation would have been different. I mean, yes. Would have been different had it been in Russian, and I probably would express myself differently. But I think I just kind of want to take this in the direction of a language to use. A new language makes you a different person to a certain extent. So there's an American version of you and there's a Russian version of you. Sometimes they intertwine. Sometimes one influences the other. And it's considered prudent, beneficial kind of virtues to separate them more cleanly for professional purposes, so maybe to connect with people. Let's say if I meet somebody abroad who is a Russian person, like say in Malaysia or something like that, it's one thing. But I'm happy to meet them. I'm happy to talk to them. If I meet an American in the same city, same country, I'm also equally happy to talk to them and connect. But those connections are different somehow. But at the same time, they're in the same bucket for me, those people. Americans and Russians abroad, outside of America or Russia. They're like, I connect to them equally, but I feel like a different person. I feel like an American when I'm talking to Americans, and I don't want to put forward my Russianness, to Americans. I don't want to sort of demonstrate, put it in the shop window, like, look, I have these qualities that make me different from you, whether you like it or not. And I'll make it, maybe even subconsciously make a stronger effort to sound American with Americans, so that there's a better connection. They have no choice to be like that because most of them only speak that language and maybe some sort of Spanish. Or if they are from a family of immigrants themselves, there's another language there as well. And I think with those people, I connect especially well because we have a kind of a similar situation where we had to adopt and develop an American identity. But if I meet Russians who just left Russia for the first time, maybe it's like this first month abroad or something like that, it's a different conversation. And I try to be more Russian for them. I definitely don't try to be American for them. I don't want to alienate them. And maybe it's a subconscious desire to also be accepted by a stranger for some reason. Like, hey, I have all these strong qualities, we can easily connect, and here they are. I
don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to connect with people, and it makes sense why we would, as you're talking to somebody who shares certain qualities, you want to connect with them in this way. It is interesting how being an immigrant and speaking to an immigrant is so good. Remember Gogol Bordello?
It's a band.
The singer? It's a band, yes. It's like a gypsy rock, I guess.
Balkan
punk rock or something. I'm no expert, but it's fascinating because they sing in English with a heavy I guess Russian accent, and they sing about immigration.
Slavic accent.
That's Slavic accent. Let's be precise. And they do like sing about immigration, and there's like a certain feeling that comes up for me when I'm listening to them. And I've been to a concert too. It's not an over exaggeration to say that there are two almost separate identities that and I'm imagining you and generally immigrants have. And these identities they're different. They're different personalities. They're different, almost different people. They have formed at different times. One of them is older. Another one is younger. The most shocking thing is when you go back to the country of origin that you haven't been to for a while, and then you realize that this entire time, the country that you left have been evolving. The language was evolving.
It didn't stop.
It's like you think that you left, they're just waiting for you to come back and continue. No, it's there. It's going.
It's so true.
The shock that I experienced when I realized that the language just developed new words that simply did not exist. And I'm like, holy shit, it's a word. You did what? Is that a word now? Can I say that? Wow. And this sort of, I tried sharing this with people and they would say like, sure, what's the big deal? Yeah, the language evolves. Why do you care so much? And I'm like, you don't understand. My home is sort of drifting away in the ocean of life. Like it is getting further out from me, from where I am, from what I understand. And it is more difficult for me to connect with them because it's just not my reality anymore. And it wouldn't be all that dramatic because I started with saying that immigration is a traumatic event. It would be as dramatic if where I am I could call home, but then I will never be fully American, right? So it's kind of like it's like in between. This is why I think immigrants generally understand each other so well, because they all are in the position of in between, the sort of in between cultures.
I'm yearning to make a comparison to programming, to branching, to like a Git. Like you are a fork, essentially. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are a fork of your culture.
You're an individual unit of your culture that stopped developing in the context of the culture and is now submerged into a new substance that is growing on. It's I don't know. I want to find words to explain how it feels and why it is so important. And I imagine we are not alone in this. I imagine there are people who feel similarly. And it's the thing that I'm realizing is that it's never going to end. Like I can't just cancel this. All these layers I have already grown. They're on me. I am it. I became it. And the number of people who I can relate to being similar to me had shrunken significantly. There's less people who are like me.
I left you a voicemail about this a few weeks ago, right? About like not being able to even place myself, like self-identify as something that has a label, because sometimes there's a desire to do that. I am this. Who are you? Oh yeah. I want to be something easily identifiable, but I'm not, and it's a mess essentially. I am who I am, but try to explain it to a stranger. Try to explain it to an interested stranger who really wants to know where you're from, where do you live, what do you do, and it's a challenge. You kind of like, where do I start? You wrote a nice post about this, because you can choose any point in time from which the story begins, from last week, from 3 years ago, from your birth. And then, okay, well, this is my story. Oh, I live in Austin, for example. You would say, been here forever, and people will have to believe you. Or you can say, I'm as Russian as they come. I just happen to know English. They will also have to accept that until they get to know you better. Then more details will come out. Yeah.
I think what's also funny is that there is a self-identification, but there is also what people project onto you. So when you meet someone for the first, I imagine when you travel and you go to, I don't know, somewhere far,
Brazil,
people look at you in Brazil. It's a good example, right? You speak to people in Brazil. I imagine their first guess is, "Oh, you're American."
Possibly, yes, some kind of Western, right? European.
You read
or Eastern. They don't know the difference really between Europe or America. Nor do they care.
Western, yeah, sure, Western. They don't, nor do they care, right? You're not,
or speaks Portuguese with an accent.
You're not with them. You kind of like, it makes sense that you're one of those like white people who speak English with an American accent. Sure, but you still identify with them. They're not going to look at you like, oh, you're Russian. No, I remember when I traveled for work to London. I remember how I don't know how to speak British English. So when I'm there, I immediately identified. I'm immediately identified as American. And I remember I was kind of like annoyed by it. I'm like, wait, I'm not. And everybody hates Americans. Don't get me wrong. Everybody's like, ugh, these Americans, they're annoying and ugh. And I remember how I would...
Cheeseburger, loudness,
That's right. And I try to be more, I try to put more accent into me so that I am not as identified into American and as more identified as someone else. Because at the time, say 5 years ago, I wanted to not carry that burden when I travel.
Oh, huge. So many threads in there. Yes. I want to talk about trauma. I want to talk about self-identification and external identification. So many things.
Let's wrap it up here.
Good. Thanks for coming on.
This is a big topic. We can continue, I think.
This is just for us for now. So till the next episode.
We'll see what happens. Thank you so much. Cheers.